Okay, so you know how sometimes you're at the store picking out produce, and there's that one apple or that one tomato that's, well, a little less than perfect.
You mean the ones with the scars and blemishes?
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes you wonder what they've been through, right?
exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, but it's not just about a few cosmetic imperfections.
No, not at all. It's way bigger than that. Today's deep dive is about the hidden world of crop diseases and pests. And the stakes are incredibly high, actually.
Okay, now you've got my attention. We're talking global food security, right?
Absolutely. Global food security, economic stability, even historical events. It's all connected.
Wow, okay. So like every single fruit and veggie out there has its own enemies.
Think of it like a constant battle. Every crop has this whole rogues gallery of microscopic villains, fungi, bacteria, insects, all trying to get a bite out of our food.
A rogues gallery. I like that. So give me an example. What's one of these battles that's really intense?
Let's see. Um, Imagine a vineyard in France, right? They're about to harvest these beautiful grapes for some world-renowned wine.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Rolling hills, sunshine, perfect grapes.
Now, picture those vines suddenly withering, leaves turning brown, all because of this tiny, almost invisible insect called Philoxera.
Philoxera. Never heard of it.
Most people haven't.
Hmm.
But this little bug almost single-handedly wiped out the entire European wine industry back in the late 1800s.
Seriously, an insect that small almost brought an entire industry to its knees. That's wild. What did they do?
They did. It took years of research, but they eventually figured out a way to fight back. They started grafting European vines onto American rootstock, which had developed a resistance to this phylloxera. Fascinating story, actually.
That's incredible. See, this is what I mean. You never think about the battles going on behind the scenes to get food on our tables.
Right, and it's not just grapes either. Take citrus fruits, for example. There's a disease called citrus greening, or huanglongbing, that's been wreaking havoc on citrus orchards all over the world.
Citrus greening. Yeah, I've heard of that one. Isn't that a big problem for orange juice?
Huge problem. It's a bacterial disease spread by insects, and it makes the fruit, grow all misshapen and bitter, basically unusable.
So my morning glass of OJ is caught up in this hidden war on crops.
Exactly. And it can impact something as you'd think invincible as a potato.
Potatoes. What could possibly take down a potato?
Well, remember hearing about the Irish potato famine?
Yeah, wasn't that a long time ago?
It was in the 1840s, and it was caused by this devastating water mold, late blight. And get this, late blight is still a problem today.
No way, they haven't found a way to stop it after all this time.
It's tough. It can wipe out entire fields and cause global shortages if it's not controlled.
Okay, I'm starting to see a theme here. Grapes, oranges, potatoes. These diseases and pests don't discriminate. What about other fruits, though? Like apples, they have their own enemies too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Apples have their own nemesis called, you're not going to believe this, apple scab.
Apple scab. That sounds kind of harmless, honestly, like something you could just peel off.
I wish it were that simple. It's a fungal disease that causes those dark, corky spots on apples.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those. So what's the big deal? A few blemishes. Doesn't really change the taste, does it?
You'd be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Consumers want those picture-perfect apples, so anything with a scab, well, it's pretty much unsellable. Big economic losses for farmers.
It's crazy how something that seems so small can have such huge consequences.
It really is. And, speaking of things that seem small but have a big impact, did you know even chocolate isn't safe from this invisible war?
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me something is threatening my chocolate? Now that's hitting below the belt. Tell me more. Chocolate. Threatening chocolate. Okay, you've got to tell me more about this one. This is serious business. What's going on?
Right. So it's called frosty pod rot. It's a fungal disease,
Hmm.
and it goes after cacao trees, where we get cocoa beans.
Frosty pod rot. Okay, even the name sounds kind of menacing. What does it actually do to the trees?
So this fungus, what it does is it infects the pods. The pods are where the beans actually grow, right? And the pods get covered in this, well, it looks almost like a white frosty mold.
Oh, wow. So I'm guessing those pods don't exactly produce the best quality beans then.
You got it. Infected pods, they produce way fewer beans. And even the ones they do produce, sometimes they're just no good. The flavor gets all messed up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So less chocolate and worse tasting chocolate. I can see why that's a problem for producers. It's got to be a big deal for those cacao farmers too, right?
Absolutely. It's a huge deal, especially for small-scale cacao farmers, a lot of whom are in West Africa. They're hit really hard by this frosty pod rot.
Wow, it's amazing how these things connect, you know? from a fungus attacking a plant to the livelihoods of farmers across the globe.
It really is. And that brings up a really important point. We've been talking about individual crops here, but imagine all these diseases and pests, all of them, doing their thing across entire regions, across continents even.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize the scale of this. It's a lot of potential damage. What are we even supposed to do about it?
Well, for a long time, farmers have relied on, those traditional methods. Things like crop rotation, bringing in natural predators to control the pests, or even, some still do this, hand-picking pests off their plants.
Yeah, I can only imagine how labor intensive that must be. Especially for large farms, there's no way they're handpicking every single pest, right?
Not anymore, at least not on a large scale.
Yeah.
There's some really cool things happening in the tech world that are, well, they're revolutionizing how we're approaching crop protection. Imagine this. What if we could monitor the health of crops from space?
Wait, from space? How would that even work? That sounds like something out of Star Trek or something.
It does, doesn't it? Sounds kind of futuristic, but it's real. There are companies out there, like Pharmanaut, for example. They're using satellite imagery and AI.
Okay, I'm listening. So they're using satellites to help farmers. How does that work?
So basically, plants that are stressed, whether it's from disease, pests, even just not getting the right nutrients, they give off different signals. They emit different light wavelengths compared to healthy plants.
Really? I had no idea. So these satellites can pick up on those signals, those light differences from all the way up in space.
That's exactly right. They have sensors that detect these super subtle variations in light, so it's almost like giving farmers X-ray vision for their crops.
Wow, that's incredible. So no more waiting for a problem to get out of hand. They can catch it early and actually do something about it.
It's all about early detection. It lets farmers target the problem, whether it's applying a very precise amount of pesticide or maybe adjusting how they're watering and fertilizing.
It's like they're trading in their magnifying glass for like a high-tech control panel. That's amazing. But how do they know what they're looking at? How can you tell the difference between a plant that needs more water and one that has a fungal infection from space?
That's where the AI comes in. So you've got these AI algorithms crunching tons of data, satellite images, weather patterns, even historical crop yields to figure out what's most likely going on.
So it's like having a team of crop doctors on call 24/7. That sounds incredibly useful for farmers. But what about small farms? Can they even afford this kind of technology?
That's a really good question. This type of technology, it's an investment for sure, and it's definitely something that's more accessible to larger farms right now. But there are groups out there trying to change that.
That's good to hear. So there's hope for smaller farms to get on board with this too.
I think so. They're developing more affordable options and making sure farmers, no matter the size of their farm, get the training and support they need. Because at the end of the day, we need everyone to have access to these tools.
Absolutely. This technology, it could really change how we think about food production in a big way. But are there any downsides?
That's a really important question. Like any technology, it has its challenges, right? We have to think about things like data privacy, making sure it's being used responsibly. And of course, the algorithms themselves, we have to make sure they're not biased in any way.
So proceeding with caution, being mindful of the potential downsides, that's key here.
You got it. It's like anything powerful, right? It's all about how we use it. But I will say this, I think the future of farming is going to be very, very interesting.
I think you're right about that. It's incredible, all these factors at play, from those microscopic pests and diseases we talked about to these satellites orbiting above us.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it?
It really does. We've covered a lot of ground today, and we've really only scratched the surface. It really makes you think, that's for sure. This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener. Honestly, I think I'll look at my plate a little differently from now on.
That's what we were hoping for. It's easy to take food for granted, isn't it? We don't always think about the journey it took to get there.
Right. It's like we've been zoomed all the way out, looking at these satellite images of farmlands. Now it's time to zoom back in and see how it all connects to us, the choices we make every day.
And that's where it gets really empowering, actually. Because you see, understanding these challenges, it helps us make more informed decisions as consumers.
So you're saying it's not just about farmers or scientists, it's about all of us.
It really is. Every choice we make, what we buy, what we're willing to pay for it, even how much we end up throwing away, it all adds up.
Makes sense. Maybe next time I'm at the grocery store, I won't be so quick to pass over that, slightly bruised apple or that tomato that's not perfectly round.
I love that because those imperfections, they could actually be a good sign. It might mean that farmer is prioritizing sustainability, or maybe they're a small operation that can't always afford the latest technology.
It's like a reminder that those perfect fruits and veggies we often see, they might come with hidden costs. Environmental costs, social costs, maybe even ethical costs that we don't always see.
Exactly. And sometimes choosing something a little imperfect, well, that might actually be the more sustainable, more ethical, and let's be honest, probably tastier choice in the end.
This has been such a fascinating conversation, I have to say. I feel like I've learned so much about what it takes to get food on our tables, the challenges, the innovations. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
Hmm.
But we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to explore, like the whole world of genetic engineering or vertical farming, or even just the importance of biodiversity to protect crops from disease. It's a constantly evolving field, that's for sure.
Wow, it really is amazing. So, as we wrap things up here, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this deep dive?
That's easy curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions, learn about where your food comes from, and support the people and businesses working to build a better, more sustainable food system.
Well said. On that note, I think I'm feeling inspired to go whip up something delicious in the kitchen. Thanks for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time, stay curious.